Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Celtics Talk Radio Live post-game video chat with Igor and Danny. This time we are analyzing. Let me remind you that on our YouTube channel you have video chat recapping the game one against Indiana. In the last show, you can find on blogtalkradio.com Celtics Talk Radio pages, and everywhere you can search your podcast. We analyzed the games number 2 and 3 against Indiana Pacers, round 1. Now we are recapping the series, the whole series against Indiana Pacers, and the Celtics swept Indiana Pacers 4-0 with the last win away in Indianapolis, 110-106, and it was the first sweep after 2011. When the Celtics with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo, they swept New York Knicks in first round, if I'm correct. It is just sixth sweep in history of the Celtics playoffs, so rare result and really precious result. Many people, including Celtics fans and Boston Celtics media, by the way, Boston Celtics medias are the worst part of Boston sports, really. Boston and Massachusetts sports should be really proud of their athletes and fans and public, but only embarrassing part of Boston Celtics city and environment, only embarrassing part are Boston Celtics medias. Boston Celtics medias right now, after this sweep, they are trying to minimize the Celtics' success in the first round. They are saying that despite Celtics swept Indiana Pacers, they didn't play well, which is true, but only partially true. You know, we lost the three first halves in the 4 games against Indiana Pacers in 4 games. So Indiana won the 3 first halves, but Boston Celtics won the 4 games, which is what is the most important. Now, I'm asking those smart asses of Boston Celtics medias, what should, for example, Oakland medias, and what should, for example, the medias in California that are following Golden State Warriors tell about injury of DeMarcus Cousins and about playing of their team. Probably they will win the series 4-0, but they lost like 32 points lead, and they lost DeMarcus Cousins for I don't know how many games. Now Bogut is the starting center. So what should Oakland media say about Golden State Warriors? Are they attacking maybe Golden State Warriors? Are they doubting in Golden State Warriors? No, they are supporting their team. They are defending their team from attacks of other medias. What Boston Celtics medias are doing? Boston Celtics are finally playing the way we all expected them to do, and Boston Celtics have finally flipped the switch. I really do not like that phrase. I think it's stupid phrase, but let me quote Kyrie Irving and Boston Celtics medias. When Boston Celtics finally flipped the switch, they are saying, oh, well, Indiana should be defeated like 20 plus points every single game. Excuse me? Come on. Indiana, that were number 3 at the Eastern Conference prior to Oladipo's injury, majority of the season, should be swept by average 20 plus points deficit. Excuse me. And by the way, even if Boston Celtics could do it, why in the world Boston Celtics will use 100% effort and waste energy on Indiana freaking Pacers? They just suck. I would be happy with 4 wins, 1 point average. And that's it. That's all that matters. I mean, I really do not understand how the brains of Boston Celtics media's journalists are working. You know, those heads should be examined, Daniel, and experts should determine how those brains are working, because I really cannot in 27, 28 years following Boston Celtic sports. What do you say?
I tend to agree with you in this situation that I do feel that a lot of these people that want to criticize the Celtics when it comes to, they had these they got the swept, but each of these games were really close, so really they haven't flipped the switch. I look at the fact that, one, they were playing the hardest team if you think about it, because despite the fact that the Pacers did lose Oladipo, they lost. It wasn't like they had lost Oladipo towards the very last week of the season or towards the last quarter of the season. They lost him more towards halfway through the season, and yet they managed to stay afloat and stay ahead of Brooklyn, stay ahead of Orlando, and stay ahead of Detroit for that fifth seed. And of course, they were battling still with us in Philadelphia for the third and fourth seed, respectfully, in this case. We ended up basically having to beat them twice in the final 2 weeks in order to get the fourth spot and force them into the fifth spot. So even without Oladipo, the Indiana Pacers proved in the regular season that they were better than the Brooklyn Nets, they were better than the Orlando Magic, and they were better than the Detroit Pistons. So, ladies and gentlemen, that in itself shows Boston was playing the best team out of the four top teams in the Eastern Conference. Yet Toronto lost one of the top four games, one of the first four games in their series to the Orlando Magic, and now has to go to Game 5. Philly lost one of the first four games and now has to go to Game 5, and we still don't know what might happen in those series. Yeah, most likely those two teams are going to win and end up playing each other, but you don't know if it goes to Game 6 or even Game 7 in this case. Last night, there ain't no denying, Igor, that game between Milwaukee and Detroit, that game, the officiating was what determined the outcome of that game. Come on, a 41-12 free throw edge for the Milwaukee Bucks on Detroit Pistons, on the Detroit Pistons court. I would expect that type of treatment if that game was in Milwaukee, in order for the Milwaukee Bucks to finish the series, in a Game 5 type situation. But Game 4 in Detroit, and the Bucks are the road team, and you get 41 free throws. And even in midway through the third, the Bucks were way ahead in the free throw department. I think they were nearly at 30, and the Pistons were still in the single digits, and the Pistons were still ahead. And that's when the officials started calling fouls against Griffin and Drummond, so like that Antetokounmpo could start to take over. There ain't no denying that the officials basically screwed the Pistons last night. Odds are, if that officiating crew last night ends up giving the Pistons a fair treatment, then that series ends up going to a Game 5 in all likelihood. Of course, Houston ends up losing yesterday in game 4 to Utah, so that series is going to Game 5. Denver and San Antonio is going to at least 6. You mentioned Golden State lost one. They're going to Game 5 at least. And the Thunder and the Trailblazers are going past, at least Game 4. So really, the only team that ended up taking care of business, where you can say the officiating didn't actually screw the opponents to basically guarantee them a series sweep, was the Celtics in this situation. Yet, everything is coming out and basically saying that the Celtics aren't basically the team that was better in this series, or that basically they aren't, they still haven't proven a damn thing in this case. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Only the analysts who are still kissing the rear ends of players like LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, because those guys are constantly scoring 40, 35, 50 games a night, and basically look at this league as a superstar-driven league and are more interested in the highlights are the ones that are basically going the route of being willing to forget a few key points. Think about it, Igor. Yeah, we played an indie team that didn't have their best player in Victor Oladipo, but the Milwaukee Bucks got to play a Detroit Pistons team that the first 2 games didn't have their best player in Blake Griffin. He returned in games 3 and game 4, but on a messed up leg. So he was really of no threat to the Milwaukee Bucks in games 3 and 4. And if anything, people were basically saying the Pistons had to take him out because you were risking his career by letting him stay in those games. So you had the same situation for Milwaukee that Boston was getting with Indiana. Yet guys like Chris Broussard, Max Kellerman, Shannon Sharp, all these guys that want to talk about, Boston basically didn't prove nothing, but Milwaukee did, are leaving that key detail out of it. That Boston got to play a team with their best guy out, but Milwaukee did the same thing, and yet we're not going to mention Milwaukee basically had an easy pass to round 2 like Boston did. So again, Igor, it's playing favorites. Just like they're going to play favorites when it comes to their decisions on who they expect to win in round 2, they're not actually going to give you any legitimate stats to back up their claims.
Okay, I want to ask you second question. What are the positives from Boston sides? I really do not care about Indiana Pacers at the moment, and I don't want to talk about that. What are the positives from Boston Celtics side in Indiana Pacers series? I will help you with a couple of things. Kyrie Irving have been Kyrie Irving, except in the game 4. In the game 4, he was hit hard. He stayed on the court, and I think that maybe he should not play till the rest of the game. But he decided to play, and he was not himself. And Boston Celtics fans should not be surprised that in the game 4, Kyrie Irving was not Kyrie Irving. Al Horford had bad game, number 4. But what is the positive side? That Boston Celtics played with 8-man rotations. Boston Celtics definitely are not better without Marcus Smart. But Bill Simmons mentioned in his podcast something that is the truth, but not the way he formulated. He said that the only thing why Boston Celtics swept Indiana is Marcus Smart's injury. That is copy-paste. He's implying that, Marcus Smart was part of the problems or whatever, and his absence solidified the rotations and starting 5, which is not true. Boston Celtics are not better without Marcus Smart, and if Oladipo is healthy, we would see that how much Boston Celtics miss Marcus Smart. But what is the truth in the story is that Boston Celtics rotations are solidified because Stevens is not playing 10 or 11 guys anymore. He played Tice and practically nobody else. 9-man rotations. I cannot recall, maybe Williams got some garbage time, yes. But this is not important. Practically 8-man rotations plus some minutes for Tice. And by the way, Tice, I said it and I repeat, the people, Tice fans, can be mad at me as long as they want. I really do not want to see any more Daniel Tice against Milwaukee series, because if we see Daniel Tice, that lineup would be brutally murdered at the paint. Daniel Tice is not playoff material, and I really feels like this is the last season of Daniel Tice in green. Maybe I'm wrong, and I wish that Daniel Tice has the good NBA basketball career, but I feel like he just doesn't belong here in these playoffs in these playoff rotations of Boston Celtics. And I really feel that Boston Celtics miss a center, and I really feel that it was the mistake to let Greg Monroe, who is starting right now for Philadelphia, if I'm correct, or somebody else, because he changed so many teams in 1 year that I forgot. He started with Toronto, he was in Boston, and I think that he started in Philadelphia as a center, which is bizarre, but whatever. So I really feel like we should give Greg Monroe a chance because he really can change the game in our direction on the offense, okay? And he really can unlock offense with his passing. But he is not there, and it is what it is. So, the positive sides of Boston Celtics playoffs, Stevens finally decided to cut the rotations into the starting rotations. Starting five with Baines are looking good. They play strong defense, setting the tune for the rest of the games, etc. Kyrie Irving has been Kyrie Irving, except Game 4. We explained Al Horford, second best player. Kyrie Irving and Al Horford, two pick and roll game and pick and pop game is practically impossible to defend because of Kyrie Irving ball handling and Al Horford's versatility and passing. Then Jason Tatum emerged. Jason Tatum, I think that he had something. I must look. I have something. 16.3 points, 7 rebounds, 2.3 assists in 32.6 minutes per game. Irving has 21.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists in 37 minutes, 3 games. No, those are the stats. Sorry, those are the stats that you divided. Jason Tatum had something like 19 points per game. He was the second scorer, and he even was clutch in one of the games, etc. Then Jaylen Brown had monstrous one game. If I'm correct, number 2, 22 points, and he exploded. Or 3, I think 2. And he was really solid on the defense, and it is making us happy to see him playing like that. Gordon Hayward was superb majority of the series, but exploded the game 4. In the final period, he scored 9 points, and he had 20 points in front of their crowd, and he murdered, literally, Indiana Pacers and put them to bed. Also, Mook Morris in games number 1 and 3 scored like 20 points. In the first halves, practically he was keeping the Celtics alive in those games. He deserved all the kudos on the world. Then Terry Rozier, despite having like something like 7 points per game, he was the defensive difference maker. He was changing the tune of the games he was asked to do Marcus Smart things, to apply every single time when he is on the court, tremendous defensive pressure on the opponent's guard every single time, and he was doing that, and to hit the open shots here and there when the opportunity present to himself. And Terry Rozier was really, really good in the series and finally accepted his role. He's not Scary Terry anymore because he's not asked to play Scary Terry. He's asked to play the difference maker, defensive difference maker from the bench. And I really want to express the pleasure with the way he played the series. And anyway, 8-man rotations are working well. A little later, we will talk about the Bucks series and what do we think the Celtics should do, what do we think the Celtics should not do, etc., etc. I want to ask you, what what are your positive things from? And by the way, the Celtics changed mentality. Really, they were superb, and this is the key of the sweep. The key is not Indiana Pacers losing Oladipo. The key is the Celtics are really changed, and the Celtics changed mentality. They struggled to fight with adversity this season. When they lose one game, they that gets in their heads, and they lose another game. They could lose the third game in a row, etc., etc. Now they are really playing with good mentality in the games, I think. What are your positive sides of Indiana Pacers sweep?
I say, for one, the fact that each and every game there was somebody else outside of Irving who ended up stepping up big time. In game one, it was Marcus Morris who matched Kyrie Irving, if I'm correct, point for point in that game. I believe both of them ended up scoring 20 points in that game. If I'm correct, we ended up having 5 guys total in that game getting to double figures, but those 2 were your leading scorers. Then in game 2, we all know that game, we only had 3 guys get into double digits, but that was the game that Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum were the ones that really dominated, with Irving scoring 37 and Tatum scoring 26. The 2 of them fell just 1 point shy of basically matching the top 4 scorers for the Indiana Pacers in that game. Then in game 3, you had Jaylen Brown, who was the man that got the job done, not only basically early, but he actually outscored Kyrie in that game. But Kyrie, even though he wasn't the leading scorer, he did what he needed to do late in the game by being the one to close it out. So Jaylen Brown kept the Celtics in the game early, but then when it was late in the game, Kyrie played the role of the closer. And then in game 4, Horford and Irving, neither one of them was good, but you had Tatum, you had Brown, you had Morris, you had Rozier, and you had Hayward, who all ended up stepping up in that game and getting the job done. Overall, you had 8 guys get into 7 guys, should I say, get into double figures in that game. So this series, Igor, basically showed that this team is capable of winning in almost any sort of situation, whether it was 2 guys having a big game and just the other guys, pitching in, just a certain amount, it didn't have to be a big amount, or it could be that 2 of them, you don't have to have 2 guys going off for a major amount and all of them just pitching in roughly the same amount. I think we can kind of say, Igor, this team in this series kind of represented the same type of thing you would expect from the Warriors, in my opinion. How many times have we seen Curry and Durant go off, or Curry and Thompson go off, and everybody else just pitch in, like in the teens or something like that? Or in this situation, we've seen, pretty much everyone just go off big time, or in terms of the superstars, and virtually all the how would you say, role players virtually do nothing, or everybody basically scores about 18 points a game, and that's really it. So this was something where you could say it was shown that Kyrie doesn't have to do it all. In Cleveland, you can kind of say, without Kyrie, even in LA, LeBron has to do it all. And as long as LeBron basically is in that role, or has been in that role, he's always failed, pretty much. So this team, that's the one thing that I say is the top thing. Overall, Jaylen Brown's performance in this series. And I'm not talking offensively, I'm talking defensively. The one thing that you, me, and many others were saying about this series was, how much were you going to miss Marcus Smart when it came to stopping Bogdanovich? Jaylen Brown stepping in and having to defend Bogdanovich, and with Bogdanovich being the star player for this team now that Oladipo was out, Jaylen Brown in this game, pretty much held him in check. That is huge, and you got to wonder now, can Jaylen Brown have a repeat performance in the next round against Middleton, knowing that odds are he's going to get that, assignment. So that was the next thing. So those are the two biggest things that came out of this. Brown showing that he can be a shutdown defender if he actually, puts his, full 100% effort into it. And also the Celtics proving we don't need Kyrie Irving to go.
Okay. I mean, let's talk about Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee Bucks swept Detroit Pistons. And you collected interesting statistics on head-to-head matchups between Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Celtics. I will leave you to present your exploration because, again, I don't think that the Celtics fans can find those kind of special statistics anywhere else. Okay? Because Boston Celtics medias, again, in analytics, I'm not even going to mention national medias, they are focused on the big picture and they cannot see the wood because they are looking at so many trees. Okay, so we have the specific statistics, really precise, which game, which player, and do you want me to present or better you, because you did it, because it will be really interesting for our viewers and listeners.
Well, if you got them with you right now, you can go ahead.
Here are average for the Celtics and Bucks players in the 3 games head-to-head. Of course, you will see in terms of Bucks starters, all 5 of their starters in the regular season played all 3 games against the Celtics. In the Celtics side, Irving and Tatum, for our starters, only Irving and Tatum played 3 games against the Bucks. Baines missed 2 games, Horford missed 1, Morris missed 1, Brown missed one, and Hayward missed 1. So this is just more proof that the 2-1 record for the Bucks in the regular season needs to be revised. Giannis Antetokounmpo averaged 9.4 points more than Irving per game. However, look at the rest of the numbers and you can say, could the Bucks have won against the Celtics in those last 2 games if the Celtics had Horford, Morris, and Baines in that second game, and if we had Hayward and Baines in the 3rd game? After seeing these numbers, part of me thinks that we could have swept the season series. Giannis, 31 points, 10.6 rebounds, 4.1 assists in 3 games. Middleton, 17.3 points, 8.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists in 3 games. Lopez, 5.6 rebounds. Bledsoe, 11 points, 2.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists in 3 games. Brogdon, who is injured, by the way, 13.6 points, 7 rebounds, 3.3 assists. Snell, injured again, 10 points, 1.6 rebounds in 3 games. Ilyasova, 8.5 points, 4.5 rebounds. Hill, 3.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Sterling Brown, 1 point, 3.5 rebounds, 2 assists. Connaughton, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in 1 game. Dante DiVincenzo, he is injured, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists in 1 game. Wilson, 4 points, 5 rebounds. Mirotic, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 1 game. Pogasol, 0 games against the Celtics and he is injured also, but we will see who will play. The Celtics statistics in 3 games against Bucks. Irving, 21.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists in 3 games. Tatum, 16.3 points, 7 rebounds, 2.3 assists in 3 games. Shemi Ojolem, this is important and listen to this. Shemi Ojolem, 7.3 points, 3.6 rebounds in 17 minutes average in 3 games. Rozier, 4.6 points, 3.6 rebounds, 2.6 assists in 3 games. Marcus Smart, 5 points, 4 rebounds in 3 games. Al Horford, 19.5 points, second best scorer, and 11 rebounds and 17 assists, triple-double, average in 2 games. Brown, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, second best scorer in 2 games. Hayward, 14.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. Marcus Morris, 14.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1 assist in 2 games. Williams, 2 points. Yabusele, 2.5 points, 2 games. Tice, 4.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 0.5 assists in 2 games. Baines, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in only 1 game. And Wanamaker, 2 assists in 2 minutes in 1 game. What those stats mean, Daniel, and do you want to add something more about that statistic?
I don't know. There might be a bit of an issue either with your mic or mine. Okay, so the sound is gone, so I guess that was your mic, not mine. But answer in this situation, one of the key things I think to look at in this case is, for one, the numbers you just mentioned proves to everybody a few things. One, that this season, the Milwaukee Bucks, one of the reasons they're more of a cohesive unit has been that they had less injuries throughout the season to their key players than the Celtics did. You know, I know everybody's going to say, yeah, but they had less time with the unit they got. That's true, but remember, it was their decision to trade the guys they wanted for these players, Mirotic and all these other guys they got right now. That's, not the Celtics' fault that the Celtics ended up, keeping the guys they had throughout the earlier season. But in this situation, you had a 2-1 record for Milwaukee over the Boston Celtics. The first game in November, the Celtics were victorious against the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Celtics in that game basically had everyone available. The Bucks had everybody available, but of course the rosters were not the same rosters you're going to see now in the playoffs. In the second game, it was Milwaukee that won. However, the Celtics had virtually all of their bigs out, except for guys like Ojale, Yabusele, Daniel Tice, and Robert Williams. And for all you people out there that think Giannis Antetokounmpo is so dominating, there ain't no chance in hell that those guys are going to stop him. Only chance you have of really putting any defense against Giannis is to have Horford, Baines, and Morris. So that game was pretty much a lock for Milwaukee to win the moment it was announced Morris, Baines, and Horford couldn't go. Then in the last game, which is the only game I say you got to basically look at and maybe say, okay, there's some sort of, reason to basically say that one counts, because the rosters were pretty much the same that you're going to see in the playoffs, starting this weekend. It featured Milwaukee on their court beating us 98-97. Yet, as I mentioned, there was no Hayward, no Baines for the Celtics, and no Brook Lopez for the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks in that game had taken over 2 times the free throws, and yet only won by 1 point. Yet now, you ain't going to win, Igor. The number you mentioned for Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think we can kind of say it like this, and I mentioned it in another post that was kind of said, I think earlier today or late last night. Giannis in the playoffs last year, if you're someone that remembers the first round playoffs that we won in 7 games against them last year without Kyrie and without Gordon Hayward, the Celtics didn't stop Giannis last year either. I think there was only one game where we kind of held them in check to like maybe 18 points, something like that. But every other game in that series, he scored over 30 points or so. And then Middleton was almost the same thing. He got into like maybe the mid to upper 20s. It was everybody else on the Milwaukee Bucks team, Brogdon, Bledsoe, for example, that basically the Celtics managed to shut down in order to actually win. If those guys basically were in the zone and they ended up scoring, we ended up losing the games that night. If you think I'm lying, you can go ahead and check the stats yourself to find out what I'm talking about. But this season, it's been the exact same thing. The Celtics have not been able to stop Antetokounmpo whatsoever. But in the games that the Celtics have had a chance to win, it's been the Celtics shutting down the other key guys, or in the first game they shut down the key guys and basically ended up winning. The third game, Kyrie had a chance to win it at the buzzard, but his shot just didn't fall. So I feel those numbers, yeah, there's a couple of key things we've seen though with those numbers, that the Celtic players, they have more guys averaging double figures than what the Milwaukee players are. And again, I got rid of the players who are no longer on the rosters for both teams when it came to the players who have played in the regular season. So all those numbers that you just heard, all the names that Igor mentioned, are the guys that we will see or are at least on the bench here in the playoffs starting in round 2. So you look at those numbers, or at least hear the numbers that Igor mentioned. You can find the numbers in our We Bleed Green group in this case. You're talking the Celtics players have averaged more points per game. Overall, more players have averaged more points per game than the players from the Milwaukee side. I expect Giannis to basically do well in this series, but it's going to basically come down to how does Tatum and the rest of these guys do, outscoring Middleton, outscoring, Brogdon if he does return, outscoring Lopez and outscoring the rest of the guys. That's what those numbers tell me. If the Celtic players that we know that have been trying to claim that they deserve to be starters manage to outscore the rest of that crowd, then Antetokounmpo, Igor, in my opinion, he becomes pretty much, I guess you can say, his impact becomes zero. Even if he scores a big amount, because we all know Kyrie Irving will do a good job. He may not outscore Antetokounmpo, but he is going to get his numbers as well. It's going to come down to our guys outscoring those guys enough so that the impact that Antetokounmpo has when it comes to how much he outscores Irving will basically be negated to zero.
Okay, the next question, really important. What is your starting lineup against the Bucks? Experts like Jay King and Zach Lowe think that we should not start Aaron Baines on Bucks series, because if you start, quote from Jay King, Aaron Baines, if you start Aaron Baines, you're losing advantage in playing Horford against Brook Lopez. You're letting the Bucks off the hook. The point will be to force Baden-Holzer to put Brook Lopez on Horford. And we saw that Brook Lopez cannot guard Horford in game number 1. So if you put Baines in the starting lineup, then they will put Brook Lopez on Baines, and you will lose advantage. If you play small and Baines off the bench, that lineup had great plus minus net rating 56 something lineup. I'm talking about Al Horford at 5, Gordon Hayward at 4, Tatum, Brown, and Irving. They had the great numbers, and if you start the small ball against the Bucks, you will have advantage of playing Horford against Brook Lopez. So should the Celtics go small, and of course to include Shemi Ojule, couple of minutes, 10 to 13, for example, to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo into the rotations as a ninth guy from the bench, maybe. What is your opinion about it? Yeah, the logic suggestions would be to start at this very moment Hayward, for example, or Morris, because the trick is to play small ball, and the trick is to put Hayward and Morris, which are strong players, on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Then you sub in Shemi Ojule and put him. For example, start Hayward, sub him with Ojule, and put Ojule on Giannis. Okay, and of course Morris will play too in the rotations. In one game, I think that the game that we won, Stevens tried the small ball of Shemi Ojule at 5 and Gordon Hayward at 4. Giannis played at that very game at 5, and the Celtics made 10-2 run. Shemi Ojule drained the 3 and attacked the closeouts, and I think that playing small is the recipe for those Bucks. Now about the rebounding, on the contrary, I think that the team that is making the shots outside will win the series. Okay, it is sounding simple, but practically the offenses of both teams, despite they have Giannis and we have Horford, the offenses of both teams are oriented to the perimeter oriented. So they are trying to avoid post-ups, they're trying to avoid paint, and they're trying to shoot as many threes as they can and to open the space for Giannis, okay? So if we put Baines in, we would attach Brook Lopez down there, we would clog the paint in our offense for our cutters and dribble drive players like Tatum, like Brown, like Irving, like Rozier. So playing small is the recipe. Pains of the bench, you are sacrificing rebounds, but you are getting preferable matchup like Horford on Brook Lopez. Okay, I think that matchup, aside from Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kyrie Irving matchup, of course, I'm expecting from Kyrie to follow Giannis as good as he can. Maybe not to tie his record, but to be close. But Horford and Brook Lopez matchup will be probably decisive for outcome of the series. Agree or disagree?
In terms of, you just mentioned in terms of Irving versus Giannis.
Well, those two matchups, Irving and Giannis, and I said that in my opinion, Horford against Brook Lopez, that matchup will be decisive for the outcome of the series, because the outcome of that matchup will change the whole complex of the series and the games.
Well, to me, if Irving outscores Giannis in this series in any of the games, it's going to be huge. You know, we all know what Irving is capable of, but I don't see it happening. Not so much that I don't think he can do it, because trust me, we all know what Irving is capable of again, but with the way the officiating has treated Giannis Antetokounmpo, especially, you just got to look at yesterday's game against the Pistons. We all know Giannis is going to get more trips to the foul line in this series than what Kyrie Irving is. To me, the way Irving's impact is going to have to be is he's got to keep that matchup close in these games. You don't have, if Antetokounmpo scores 30, you don't have to score 35 or 40. You have to score 25, 22, something like that to keep it close. Something where you can say if Horford outscores Brook Lopez 20-5, because we all know Brook Lopez is, not really a good offensive player. Yeah, he can make threes, he can get, tip-ins and stuff like that, but he's not one of those guys that you're going to see scoring often. Unless you actually lose track of him or you leave him wide open, that's the only time that brother really does anything. So if Irving keeps Antetokounmpo close in terms of the scoring matchup, then Horford is going to be able to outduel Lopez, and that'll make it advantage Boston. And then after that, it comes down to everybody else. Who on the Boston side is going to make it close or outscore Middleton? Because really, even with Lopez, there's really no worry. Middleton and Antetokounmpo are really the only two threats on that team. Now, maybe to an extent, you could probably say Nikola Mirotic is probably the third guy on that team you got to give some sort of, respect to. But that is really it. Those two are the ones you can say that are going to be, the ball is going to be going to. It's kind of like the situation up in Toronto. The ball is going to Kawhi and Kyle Lowry. Those are the two they're going to be aiming for. Down in Philly, it's pretty much Embiid and Simmons. Of course, now you got Harris, you got Butler, and you got Redick. Or even the last series, Bogdanovich and Oladipo, if he was there, are the two that they'd be trying to go to. So those are the two that you gotta take care of. If Antetokounmpo doesn't dominate Kyrie in terms of the scoring output, if Kyrie keeps it close, Boston is gonna have a shot to actually win each and every game, because there's a possibility somebody else is gonna outscore Middleton in some sort of way, and then after that, the rest of the guys on the Milwaukee starting lineup and the Milwaukee bench, there's a chance they don't score a damn thing in some cases unless you leave them wide open. Which is why I've said all along, let Antetokounmpo look like Michael Jordan for all I care. Let him score 150 in this case, because if that's all he does, that's how he scores, then that means you're shutting down everybody else. As simple as that. And if you're shutting down everybody else, then odds are you're going to win that game, because Antetokounmpo is going to run out of energy at some point in each and every game. He may be young, but he's not the Energizer Bunny.
So, Danny, practically what I'm saying, why I think that in this series, the Celtics should start and will start either Hayward or Mook Morris, but I'm lining towards Gordon Hayward because if you start Aaron Baines, the good thing is that you will get his rebounds, and the defense at the start of the game will be strong. But in that case, you will lose your advantage on the offensive side of the floor, because starting Baines means that Brook Lopez will guard Aaron Baines on our offense, okay? And Giannis Antetokounmpo will probably guard Al Horford at the perimeter, okay? But we don't want the matchup on our offense between Giannis Antetokounmpo and between Al Horford. We want matchup to force the matchup between Al Horford and Brook Lopez, because we want to exploit the matchup the way we did in the game number one, when we scored something like 25 threes, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm wrong, but what we did practically attacking the specific matchups. And this is why I feel comfortable to say that the Boston will have the good chance if they do the good schemes and good game plan to win the series. We will talk about the keys of the series a little later. Now the question is who will start in the game. I feel comfortable to say that the persons who will start the game 100% game 1, Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern in Wisconsin, Sunday 28 April, the start of the series, 1 p.m. Eastern, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So the game 1, we can say, Danny, that the guys which are sure to start the game 1 are Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. Now, the question is, are you going to start either 1, Baines, or 2, either Hayward or Mook Morris? I prefer to leave Marcus Morris on the bench because he was really comfortable in Indiana Pacers series with the bench roles, and he is the perfect bench guy because he is coming off the bench and immediately making impact on every single game by scoring the points and just carry the load of the offense of that second unit. Why I would start Hayward? Because 1, like I said, if you start Hayward, you will have Horford on 5. And Boston will have to play small ball a lot this series if we want to have the chance to win. Because if we play big ball, the advantage will be in Milwaukee Bucks side of the court. For example, Giannis will face Horford, and Horford could not exploit that matchup. He will be too tired of Giannis. Baines will be guarded by Brook Lopez, and we're losing advantage on that side of the floor. So, if you start Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, and Al Horford on 5, small ball, someone called that group of people erotic city lineup. This was projected starting lineup at the beginning of year, and right now this lineup coming back in the big fashion. I think that they played in 2 games in Indiana Pacers series, and they had offensive rating of net rating 56 or something, So what does that mean? That means that this lineup will be exploited more against Milwaukee, in my opinion, in this series. Shemi Ojule from the bench. If you start Hayward, Mook Morris can play from the bench. Baines will play 5 from the bench and will face Gasol, which is more preferable matchup to him, or Ilyasova. Those 2 guys are more preferable matchup to Baines than Brook Lopez. Then Marcus Morris will play 4 from the bench. He will have the chance to have immediate impact from the bench. And we can throw in Shemi Ojule at 3, or he will guard Giannis Antetokounmpo. We can change Hayward, Marcus Morris, Shemi Ojule, even Brown or Tatum at stretches to Giannis Antetokounmpo. We can guard him with multiple guys. Okay, I don't have illusions that we will stop him, but the point is to, like you said, to stop all the others and to make Giannis Antetokounmpo tired. So, as conclusion, Daniel, if you have
Baines as a starter, uh, it will clog the paint, the Celtics paint on the offense. And it will take away preferable matchup Brook Lopez against Al Horford. And Baines, as a pick and roll player, is not as efficient with Kyrie Irving as Al Horford is. Okay, so we want to kill them with two-man game, Kyrie Irving and Al Horford all the time. Okay, and we want to take away Brook Lopez at the perimeter. The point is, if you have Baines on the defensive side of the floor of Milwaukee, Brook Lopez will guard Baines, and Brook Lopez will be in the paint. And Brook Lopez is shoot blocker. Giannis is shoot blocker too, but if you draw away Brook Lopez from the perimeter, to the perimeter, then Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward can drive, penetrate, and drive to the hoop and penetrate better, and they can be more efficient. If you have Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have the defensive wall down there. It will be so hard for our guys to penetrate and draw the fouls and free throws. And making easy baskets, and making drawing as many free throws as we can, those are two keys of our successful offense. The third key, to score the three-pointer, to score the threes in good percent. I feel that the team that is shooting better is going to win the series. As simple as that. I don't think that the decisive part of the battle will be in the paint. I think that the team that is shooting the best from the floor is going to win the series. So what do you say about my proposition, this starting lineup?
Well, I actually seem to think that our best chance is possibly putting Marcus Morris into the starting lineup. For one,
Okay.
Baines has not been in the starting lineup at all for the Celtics this season against the Milwaukee Bucks. So, for one, that kind of lets you know that if you wanted to go with the element of surprise, that would be the only thing you get with him against them, other than maybe the possibility of his defense in this case. But at the same time, he clogs up the lane, but look at what you just got in the matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons. Andre Drummond does the same thing. And Antetokounmpo, all he had to do was attack the rim, and he kept getting fouls left and right called in his favor. The officials are going to do the same thing in favor of Antetokounmpo in this second round. You take a look at the information that I think we gave, or I'm not sure if we gave it prior to the technical difficulties we had yesterday when we had to shut down and then restart up again today. The situation with the different starting lineups, as I've you and me, or not so much you, but me more than anything, I've been going toe to toe with people on Facebook, with everybody going nuts saying, "Oh, the Bucks are gonna beat the Celtics because they got a starting lineup that's gonna dominate." Well, 2 out of 3 games, as I mentioned yesterday, if I'm correct, 2 out of 3 games in the regular season, the Celtics starters outscored the Bucks starters. So technically, the Bucks starters haven't been so dominant this year as you're all claiming to be, and it hasn't been the Bucks starters missing players. It's been the Celtics starters that have been basically injured in those games. Thus far this season, the starting lineup of Morris, Tatum, Horford, Smart, and Irving, they ended up going in their game. They were the ones that did the third game. They outscored the Milwaukee starters 76-75. The first game, it was Ojale, Hayward, Tatum, Horford, and Irving. In game one, they outscored the Milwaukee starters 86-80. The only time that, again, Milwaukee starters outscored the Celtics starters, you had Ojale, Hayward, Tatum, Irving, and Smart. No Horford, no Morris, no Baines in that game. But you got to consider the situation between the three guys you gave an option as. You know, right now, unless Brogdon is deemed capable of playing in game one, it's going to be Brown, if I'm correct, that's been playing in place of him in the first in round one.
Sterling Brown.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Brown is going to be the one playing in Brogdon's place alongside Antetokounmpo, Lopez,
Yes,
Middleton,
true.
and Bledsoe, if I'm correct. So
The starting lineup is Eric Bledsoe, point guard, Sterling Brown, shooting guard, Chris Middleton, small forward, power forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the center, Brook Lopez. And the bench depends on their injury report. We don't have injury report when Malcolm Brogdon will be back, when Dante DiVincenzo will be back, when Pogasol will be back, and when Tony Snell will be back. So their bench will depend on injury report on those four injured guys. From Marcus part, I will read the injury report after you finish your segment, but those four guys are questionable from Milwaukee Bucks side. Malcolm Brogdon, Tony Snell, Pogasol, and Dante DiVincenzo.
yeah, but like I said, the five guys that are in the starting lineup right now, the key thing is you got two nearly 7-footers in the power forward and center position. If you go with Gordon Hayward, that means you're sitting Baines and Morris in exchange for him. You put Horford, regardless of whether you put him on Lopez or you put him on Antetokounmpo, that means you're putting a smaller player on the other one in this case. Most likely you're going to put one of them, whoever it is, you're going to put it on Lopez, while Horford takes Antetokounmpo in this case. Lopez, he may not be a juggernaut of an offensive player, but that brother can still burn you if you don't play him the right way or you leave him wide open, for example.
Yep.
So I would not recommend leaving Kyrie Irving or Jaylen Brown or Gordon Hayward or Jason Tatum on Brook Lopez. So I would not put Gordon Hayward in the starting lineup in exchange of Aaron Baines or Marcus Morris, just to go small. I think that was proven in Game 2 when we went with only Ojale and 4 smalls in that game. So that second game kind of proved that. Then now you got Aaron Baines and Marcus Morris, those two options in my opinion. Aaron Baines, what offense does this brother bring, Igor? You're going to have to do something to spread the floor, because you're going to want Antetokounmpo and Lopez to get out of the paint area to allow Irving to take advantage of whatever matchup he has and get to the rim. I think Stephen A. Smith kind of said it the best. This series is going to come down to not only, who's, I guess you could say, the supporting cast, which supporting cast basically outduels the other, but also, can Kyrie Irving not so much outscore Giannis, but can he keep up with him at least close enough? A good example, 2008, Igor, LeBron James, Paul Pierce, second semifinals, same situation. None of us expected Paul Pierce to outscore, and outplay LeBron James in that series, but we expected him to at least keep the head-to-head matchup close so that KG, Ray Allen, Kendrick Perkins, Rajon Rondo, and all those other guys would be able to outduel the rest of the guys on that Cavaliers team in order to ultimately win the game. And Game 7 was the perfect example of it. LeBron scores 45, Pierce scores 41, if I'm correct, and the Celtics end up winning the game ultimately in the end in Route 12 championship. Irving is going to have to basically do the same thing in this series. he's got to keep it close with Antetokounmpo. And what better way to help him do that than to have offense on the floor, not only at your power forward position, but at the center position, so that both Lopez and Antetokounmpo have to come out of the paint in order to basically defend their guy. Because we know Morris earlier this season, even though he's kind of cooled off a bit, earlier this season there was talks that he could be in the three-point shooting contest due to how hot he was shooting from beyond the three-point line. So let Lopez or Antetokounmpo leave Morris wide open from the three-point line just because they want to double-team Kyrie. Or let them do it to Horford in this case. You know Kyrie is going to make the right move, make the right pass to the next player in order for them to get the ball to those guys, and they'll make the Bucks end up paying for it. As you mentioned, that was the reason why we ended up beating them in the first game, was the three-point shooting in this situation. So
this is the receipt.
You know, you're not going to win with Baines, in my opinion, in the starting lineup, because Baines does not take enough three-pointers and does not make them on a consistent enough basis to make him a threat. That's the type of player
the offense will be bad.
Exactly. That's the type of player. Unfortunately, Baines is a good player in my opinion on defense and going after the rebounds, but he's the type of player that the Bucks will be willing to leave wide open and say, go ahead, you try to beat us in this situation in exchange for us doubling Kyrie. You need somebody in there that they will regret trying to leave wide open, and that ultimately they will say, okay, this guy's kicking our ass by us leaving him wide open. We have no choice but to basically defend him and live with somebody going one-on-one defending Kyrie and hope that they can shut him down.
Yeah, I would be totally okay, Daniel, with your proposition. If Steven starts Morris, it would make sense. Like I said, as long as Al Horford is playing 5, like I said and underlined, the first matchup that will probably decide the series, like you said, is point guard, superstar matchup between Kyrie Irving and between Giannis Antetokounmpo. It is important, Kyrie Irving, if not to outscore Giannis Antetokounmpo, which would be extremely difficult, then to keep up with him, to score closer amounts of points with him. Okay, this will be what is one of the keys. You mentioned Stephen A. Smith. I mean, it is what our common sense is saying. For example, if Giannis Antetokounmpo scores 41, we will need Kyrie Irving to score between 34 and 35, depending on our bench production. And by the way, we will not talk right now about the keys of the series. Let's get back to Morris. I was against starting Marcus Morris in the Indiana series. Like you said, he didn't play well the last month of the regular season, but he recovered and he became the perfect bench guy. I'm for starting Hayward because he showed, in my opinion, against Indiana Pacers that he is fully recovered. He is 90% or more recovered. He is, in his own words, reminding himself of the old Gordon Hayward. He is driving, he is shooting with the confidence, he is absorbing the contact, he is driving the closeout. He became the leading distributor and scorer and the leader of the second unit group, which is exactly what the Celtics need out of Gordon Hayward. And they absolutely need the all-star Gordon Hayward, which is like 17 to 20 points per game and 5+ assists per game and couple of rebounds and the good defense in order, again, I repeat, in order the Celtics to have the chance to, defeat the Bucks. I will get back to our talk from the shows, Daniel. I really think, and I underline, that Gordon Hayward is the key to the Celtics' success. Now, I have to, again, answer the people. I posted the post about which was the leading scorers of the Celtics in the first 4 games. And I noticed that the Celtics fans' obsession with Jason Tatum is skyrocket high, in this series against Indiana, it is justified because Jason Tatum really played the good series. He was the second or the third best scorer on every single game. And he was clutch. He was leading the Celtics in game 2 or 3. I cannot remember, against Indiana. And this is not important, bottom line. Hayward is okay, like I said. But in clutch time, we know which are Celtics' first 2 options. And if you think that if you say that you will go to give the ball to Jason Tatum in the last attack, I will say that you're crazy. We know that Kyrie Irving and Al Horford and their 2-man game, this is what is the best offensive weapon for the Celtics. But as we saw in the game 4, the importance of the role players. If Kyrie Irving and if Al Horford, if they have the bad shooting night, like in the game 4, they shooted 8 of 32. Kyrie Irving had bump, Horford had bad game offensively. But again, if they have it, the others can take over. Jason Tatum, first thing. Gordon Hayward, second thing. The third thing, Jaylen Brown. And we must praise again Terry Rozier for adjusting his skills and doing exactly what Stevens and coaching staff ask him to do. That is to apply the defensive pressure on every single possession when he's on the floor, on their point guards, and to do Marcus Smart things and to score the free shoots, the free threes when he's open, not to force it. We don't need him to be scary, 17 points per game, 8 assists like the last playoffs. You will not see that guy, but to be Terry Rozier, 7 points, 4 assists, great defense, and we are happy with Terry Rozier. To conclude, because I said too many things, I'm totally okay with Morris on the starting lineup. This is doing exactly what I want. Like I said, Morris on Giannis, good. Then throw in Ojule, great. Then bring in Hayward on 2 and 3 for the creation and for shoots when you rest Brown or Tatum. It will work well too. But again, I feel that Gordon Hayward is ready to take 35 minutes per game. I feel that Gordon Hayward is should belong to the starting lineup. And I think that Brad Stevens will exploit that Erotic City lineup, the starting lineup from the game 1 regular season. This lineup will play the huge role in the series and maybe decisive role. Are we going to win the series or not? This is my feeling. And this lineup, Erotic City lineup, will finish the games. If they are not the starters, they will be the closers 100%, Daniel. I can bet with it. At least majority of the games, because, like I said, this is the best starting five that we possess right now, talent-wise. Now, um, what else I want to say? The X factor is Gordon Hayward. He should be probably the second best player or the third best player on the court if we want to have the chance to win. Okay, we have guys that will take over, but basically without Smart, we are 8 men deep. We know which is the starting five. We have three, or if you throw in Ojule, 4 main rotations. The guys that are showing play Williams, play Tice, play anybody else. I say you're crazy because this is the playoffs and they just do not belong to playoff rotations. So we will say 8 man rotations. When Smart is back, 9 man rotations. Eventually, number 9 will be Ojule, and that's it. Gordon Hayward, X factor. Gordon Hayward will be probably decisive factor. Are we going to win the series or are we going home after the second round? And the best starting lineup that we have is that so-called Erotic City lineup. Somebody called that lineup that way on the weird Celtics Twitter, So this is my final take about the lineups. Do you want something to add, Daniel?
Well, in regards to Gordon Hayward, you probably hit the nail, right on the head when it comes to him. He could probably be one of the, if not the top, key in this series, knowing that he is going to be the top player off the bench in this series from both teams, in my opinion. If one thing I've told everybody in this that's been going toe to toe with me in these Facebook posts and all that is you can't use the argument that just because you think Giannis is going to dominate us, that's the reason Giannis and the Bucks are going to win this series, because last season Giannis dominated us and the Celtics still beat them and eliminated them in 7 games. Last year in the playoffs, he averaged over 30 points. I think it was a game. There was only one game where the Celtics kind of held him in check. I think he scored about maybe 18 points in that game. But every other game he was around the 30-point mark. In this case, Middleton, we couldn't find an answer for. Every game he was in the mid to upper 20s. So really, you got 2 players on that team that technically you can say we had no answer for. So the difference was you stopped everybody else. And, people say this is a different team this year. But again, this is a different Celtics team. Virtually the same guys, basically, with 2 new stars on their team. Gordon Hayward is going to be the best player off the bench in this case, because I think you can make an argument the best player on the bench for the Bucks right now. Again, you mentioned we still gotta wait for the injury report and all that for the Bucks in regards to who's gonna be out, who's gonna be in. But the best guy on the bench right now probably is Mirotic in this case. Really? We all know between Mirotic and Gordon Hayward, we all know who everybody's going to choose when it comes to those 2 going one-on-one in this case. So there's no debating. Gordon Hayward in this case is going to have an opportunity coming off the bench where he can take advantage of that Milwaukee bench and really make an impact to really give the Celtics a boost if the Celtics starters basically do not live up to the hype, I guess you can say. We still got to question the situation with Terry Rozier and Eric Bledsoe from last year. With Rozier getting into the head of Bledsoe, and even Bledsoe admits it, that he allowed Rozier to get into his head. You don't know how that's going to work out this year between the 2 of them. So, it's gonna be interesting. But if Hayward in this series plays anything like he did in Game 7 against in Game 4 against the Indiana Pacers, then that is gonna be major for this Celtics team, because I expect the starting lineup, at least Horford, Tatum, Brown, and Irving, to live up to the expectations. And then depending on where Morris is at, whether he's a bench player or a starter, I think you're going to get a decent amount from him. But if you get Hayward as well to get, let's say, about 15 to 20 points a game in this series, trust me, Boston is going to have a decent shot of winning this series, because the only two guys on that Bucks team that I think you can guarantee is going to be able to give you a decent, scoring output every game, that it's guaranteed, is Antetokounmpo and Middleton. Everybody else is a question mark as to whether or not they're going to actually get the job done. We saw it last year in the first round. We've seen it throughout the regular season, regardless of what roster it was, whether it was the roster from the first game, the roster from the second, or the roster from the third. And that's the one thing that it seems like Bucks fans just can't seem to accept by someone like me explaining it to them. Your starters have been good all year, yeah, but our guys have proven they can keep up with them. It's your bench that's the Achilles heel. And if your bench doesn't show up, Boston's going to knock you out, because we know our bench has a decent shot of actually showing up, because we've got a guy who's an all-star and a starting caliber player that's going to lead the bench.
Maybe Hayward will be starter. Let's wait. I think it will be mistake again if we start Baines, and I really hope that Stevens will not make that mistake, because it will lead us to lose the game 1, and we know that game 1 is going to set the tune of that series. When it's about Marcus Smart injury update, today it is Wednesday, so this Saturday, Daniel, this Saturday it was, this next Saturday will be 3 weeks him out, okay? So 3 weeks since the injury, it was projected at least for 1 more week, okay? So we can safely say that he could be back probably for games 4 or 5 eventually, limited minutes, whatever, doing Marcus Smart things. Maybe we can throw him on Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he can wrestle with him, because we know that he's capable of doing that. So good luck to Marcus Smart. Again, this is not a joke. This is muscle injury, and Marcus Smart right now still not capable to play. He is making progress. Tonight he practiced. He said that he was in sweat, but again, he's running up and down on the court, but he's still not playing 5-on-5 basketball, and he's still not ready to play the game. So Malcolm Brogdon could be back for the Bucks in the first 4 games of the series at some point. We will see about that. We will inform you at our page, We Bleed Green. Couple of notes from what you said. Again, like I said, we must play small ball against the Bucks, because this is our best chance to defeat the Bucks. Erotic City lineup with Hayward will be exploited in big amounts. This is my opinion. Then about the bench scoring, we will not have the bench scoring problems because we will play like 8-man rotations, and we know that Stevens will put at least one, I really hope, with the bench unit. For example, if you have the bench unit of Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, and Aaron Baines, you will put one of Jason Tatum and Kyrie Irving and Al Horford there and extended, and you will not have any problems. When Kyrie Irving and Al Horford are together on the floor, I had some statistics that the Celtics are outscoring huge their opponent. So that means that we will need Kyrie Irving and Al Horford from 38 to 40 minutes per game in order to maximize our potential and capacity to win. And you was talking about the hitting and targeting the right mismatches on the Milwaukee side, and I feel the same way. And I think that we have better mismatches down the court if we exclude Kyrie Irving and Giannis Antetokounmpo matchup, and we talked about that. So if you take down the court, starting from the matchup that I mentioned, Al Horford and Brook Lopez, advantages mainly in the Celtics side. We can argue that who is going to win the matchup between Chris Middleton on All-Star and Jason Tatum. Maybe Chris Middleton will win it, but maybe Jason Tatum will be close, you know. We will see. But we can say that, for example, let's assume exercise-wise that Chris Middleton will win this matchup. But this will be the only mismatch or matchup that the Bucks will win, and it will be close, I'm sure. I'm sure that Antetokounmpo will not outscore Kyrie Irving 10 points, and I'm sure that Chris Middleton will not outscore Jason Tatum for 10 points, okay? And are we going to dig dig deeper into mismatches? Are we going to compare Sterling Brown and Jaylen Brown? I mean, come on. Are we going to compare, for example, Nikola Mirotic? Everybody that watched the two games that we won against New Orleans Pelicans knows that we won those games particularly mainly because we targeted Nikola Mirotic, and that guy could not stay on the floor, and that guy could not defend literally anybody. He should score literally 30 points in order he to be plus minus plus positive, okay? So we have mismatched Nikola Mirotic. Then Eric Bledsoe has improved ear. Yes, it is. But you mentioned Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier is in his head, man. I mean, probably Bledsoe will outscore Terry Rozier, but I have confidence that Terry Rozier can play mental games with him and be defensively good matchup for him, you know. And we will see Pogasol, Aaron Baines, for example, from the bench. That duel will be very interesting. And I feel very confident that the Celtics can scheme out the Milwaukee Bucks' strengths, okay? And also, Daniel, I have confidence that we have better mismatches, like I said. And this is why I think we would win. And also, one side note, if we get our preferable matchup, Horford against Brook Lopez, the question to me is how the Bucks will adjust to that Celtic style of playing. And this is the next segment of our talk. For example, are they going to get back to post up Brook Lopez, because that brother is doing everything to get away from that style of playing, and he's shooting threes mainly on long distance jumpers or mid-range jumpers. So are they going to exploit right now posting up Brook Lopez and Pau Gasol and Giannis Antetokounmpo, because if they do it, if they can get back to the last year's style of playing, post ups and paint based offense, the Celtics will kill them, So it will be interesting how Mike Budenholzer will readjust to the Celtics staff, and Brad Stevens became really, really good in the segment of the games called in-game adjustment, and I think that Brad Stevens is one of our strengths too, and one of the reasons why I believe the Celtics will win the series probably in 6 and 7 games. But I said enough about that, and I hope that we make pretty clear picture, Daniel, how the Celtics should play and what the Celtics should do. Now, the people at the Celtics page, Daniel, that are constantly posting stop shooting threes and get to the rim, they got to realize that today, again, it is 21st century basketball, it is modern era, and the three-point shooting and better field goal percent is only one of the elements that will decide the outcome of every single particular game in the series and the outcome of the whole series at all. But the people need to realize, Daniel, that three-point shooting is real, and corner shooting especially, is really important for the whole outcome of this series. I feel like, because I mentioned the first part that the Bucks are shooting well for three, so I feel like the team that shoots better from the 3-point line and from the field goal, the team that is having better field goal percent is going to win the series 90%, in my opinion. So in order to defeat the Bucks, the Celtics needs to create the open shooting opportunities. The Celtics need to have good shooting selection. I don't want to see out of transition threes, except maybe Kyrie Irving. And the Celtics need to hit the shots. Really, really simple, because this is what the basketball is. Like in the words of Doc Rivers, it is hit or miss, hit or go home series. So that's pretty much it for this part. Before we add more tactical details, do you want something to comment?
Well, I think you can accept the members and other people complaining about the 3-point shooting and too many threes being jacked up against Indy, because Indy really all they had was Miles Turner to really clog the paint. And we all know, the brother had the most threes, I guess you can say, if I'm correct, inside the NBA this year. But this brother wasn't a superstar player. He doesn't get a special treatment from the league and all of that. So you have to really attack him, and doing that, you're likely to get a foul call against him. But come round two against Milwaukee, it's gonna be a totally different situation, and in a way, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo in that paint. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you, the 3-point shooting is probably the only way you're gonna beat this team. If you're let's just say it like this, Igor. If you're someone that didn't watch a single game of Milwaukee and Detroit, then don't even bother to think about trying to tell me that I am wrong with what I'm about to say. Because trust me, I'm someone that kept an eye on that series, and it was absolutely horrendous, especially that fourth game. I ended up watching that, and for one, the NBA should be absolutely ashamed of itself to let that type of an officiating take place with Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks getting 41 free throws to only 12 for the Detroit Pistons on the Detroit Pistons home court in a game where the Pistons are the ones trying to fight for their season. You know, come on. You want to claim the Bucks have been the best team all year, that they're so freaking dominant, and then yet that's the type of officiating you're going to give them? You know, but you take a look at that game, literally. Andre Drummond is bigger than any other players we have. Blake Griffin is somebody who was viewed as a, you know, prior to the situation with his, you know, leg injury, and, you know, prior to him leaving the Clippers to come to Detroit, he was someone that was viewed as one of the top players in the league. Neither one of them was given any sort of respect by the officiating crew in that series when going toe to toe with Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, Igor. Which means come Sunday when we start playing the Bucks in Game 1, the only player, Igor, I think that has any sort of chance to actually get some sort of respect from these officials is going to be Kyrie Irving. I literally have no... I'm trying to think of the word here. I literally have no faith. Let me just throw that word out there. I have no faith that these officials are going to give us an actual fair officiated series that will allow both teams to get roughly the same amount of free throws and fouls in these games. So I wouldn't be surprised that we could see someone like Tatum go straight to the hoop and get a punch thrown right at him by Antetokounmpo and no foul is called. That's literally what I'm thinking. I could expect that because Antetokounmpo is basically now, in many people's view, the face of the league. Now that LeBron is kind of on the, you know, downhill, basically, or I guess you could say using Max Kellerman's, you know, way of saying he's now falling off the cliff. Pretty much, he's on the decline. Only has a few years left. So Antetokounmpo now is the one at the top of the cliff, and somebody's got to be basically ready to knock him off it in this situation. So I have no confidence, no faith, however you want to say it, that we're going to see a fairly officiated series against the Milwaukee Bucks. So you got a better chance of our guys attacking the rim and suffering an injury, unfortunately, than we are getting a call made against Antetokounmpo. Now, if it's Brook Lopez, it may be a different story if he's the one inside the paint. But if it's Antetokounmpo, I'd rather see you jack up a three from half court than to actually attack the rim. That's literally how I'm going to look at it. So I am not going to complain whatsoever about a three-point shot being taken rather than attacking the rim. Now, if we've taken 33s and we haven't basically made a single one, then fine. That's when you can say you don't have it tonight. Just attack and basically live with the results in this situation. But
it is about shooting selection.
Exactly.
It is about shooting selection.
Exactly. If the three-pointers ain't falling and you've tried half the game to try and do it, 3/4 of the game, then fine. But until that point, you keep shooting the three because you got a better chance of your threes going down than you do getting a foul call made against Antetokounmpo in this series.
I have words from John Karalis about what we talked about, and just to underline my point, Boston Celtics against Milwaukee Bucks series will come down to the outcome of the Brook Lopez against Al Horford matchup. Quote, John Karalis, RedsArmy.com, and the perfect antidote for gigantic yet slow-footed human like Lopez is player like Horford. One of stretchiest of the stretch advantage of Horford's unique skills to easily outscore the Bucks in the time he and Lopez shared the floor. The real advantage of this matchup for the Celtics is that all Horford needs to do maximize its everything he's already been doing. It's just the way that we run our offense, said Horford. I'm doing anything different, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time at the perimeter. I'm going to be in the paint areas at times. I feel like that's one of the strengths for me as a player, and it doesn't matter who I'm going against. As with any matchup advantage Horford has over another big, it begins with his ability to hit the threes. Playing the same court as Kyrie Irving and Chance, that advantage because Irving's ability to get into the paint carries some gravity. When Irving can get into the teeth of the defense, a rim protector like Lopez has the natural tendencies to get involved, which opens up drive and kick passes to Horford. The threat of the three can also be overcompensation. When Horford has the ball in his sweet spot at the time to shoot, there is another natural reaction of rushing to try to stop him that allows Horford to return to the drive and kick favor. Whether it plays like this or pick and rolls with Irving, Horford is able to use his skills as a Boston advantage. When Lopez sticks close to Horford to take away his shoot, his passing ability can take over. If the teammate catches his own defender not paying attention for even a split second, he can attack the rim area left vacant for Lopez. The advantage isn't just at the perimeter. Horford is strong and he is brilliant in the post, and he can back Lopez down and draw the attention of the Bucks defender. The Celtics will likely do all they can do to maximize Horford and Lopez's minutes on the floor. The best way to do is to move Aaron Baines to the bench and starting small, either with Marcus Morris or Shemi Ojule. Just a second, because I lost the connection for the article for the minutes. So John Karalis is thinking still that the Celtics will start Shemi Ojule. Daniel, I really think that this is impossible. I mean, everything is possible with Brad Stevens, but I really think it is going down to Marcus Morris or Gordon Hayward. So John Karalis is thinking that Gordon Hayward could also be a candidate, but Brad Stevens isn't keen on putting his key player to go against Antetokounmpo, okay? So he's thinking either Ojule or Morris. I disagree, but it is okay about Morris and Ojule. I still think that it's Hayward. Even if Hayward is not starting, he's going to play like 35 minutes and finish the games, but we will see it. That is why he will choose to start Ojule against the Bucks a year ago. The Bucks might choose to counter that move by starting small on Antetokounmpo on Horford, but that leaves Milwaukee with no rim protections. That might be a risky move, though, considering Lopez minutes on the floor without Horford can be beneficial to Bucks. When he doesn't have to respect the three-point shooter on the floor, he can commit to the drive without so much and hitting the passes. It is hard to say what impact Baines will have on the series because he played only 15 minutes in November game in the two games. It's very possible he will see less minutes. He played 34 combined minutes over last three games of the last year's series against Milwaukee. That coincidences with Ojule's insertion of the starting lineup, in the starting lineup. If Stevens goes with the same plan, Baines will likely see dropping in the minutes. It's small price to pay Baines and the Celtics. The goal is to win, and finding the way to play Lopez on the floor is the step for the Celtics. Stevens might have something a little less obvious in mind, but for now, he seems to figure it out. Horford against Lopez at times would help to neutralize a big advantage the Bucks enjoy over the course of the regular season. This is pretty good article, Daniel. I disagree about Shemi Ojule. I really think that this is not going to happen, but whatever. This is to close the subject that we have been talking about, who will start, and that the series will come down. One of the keys to the mismatches and matchups. Playoff is all about the matchups, and outcome of Horford and Brook Lopez matchup will be one of the keys for the series for the Celtics. Another subject, how Boston's approach to solving Milwaukee's zone drop defense. Now listen to this, Daniel. Of all the teams who seek to take down Milwaukee, Boston's approach to solve Mike Budenholzer's zone drop defense is one of the most promising. In the zone drop, the center, who is Brook Lopez, pay advantage, dear viewers and listeners, to the zone drop defense of Mike Budenholzer. So, in zone drop defense, the center, whether it's Brook Lopez or Ersan Ilyasova, or sometimes Nikola Mirotic or even Giannis Antetokounmpo, this center will sag far off from the screen action, while the ball defender, usually wing or guard, fights through, over, more often than under screen, to keep the ball handler from taking a high volume shoot. I will repeat. The center will sag far away from screening action, Brook Lopez, and the ball defender, the guard or a wing, will fight over the screen rather than under the screen to keep away Boston's ball handler from taking a high value shoot. Unless the ball handler is exceptional pull-up three-point shooter, which Kyrie Irving is, they will either pass to the teammate or dribble inside the arc, where the decision becomes either to challenging the big man at the rim or taking a lower value jumper. The long two. Middleton loves long two, so is Brogdon. Kyrie's wizardly aside, the hole that the offense can exploit is with a screener, often a big and often on the wing or at the top of the key. Bigs who can shoot the three find themselves wide open. For example, Lopez and Ilyasova obviously struggle to cover ground when they are hanging back in the paint. And so is pick and roll becomes pick and pop. And all the screener needs to do is to take the open jumper. Al Horford three-point shooting is 36%. So he can do that as well as dribble or pass to another open guy. Let's look to Aaron Baines, three-point shoot, 34.4%, which is good, exceptional good. Daniel Tice, 38.8%. So Boston backup bigs are shooting over 34.4% for three. This dynamics has been how Milwaukee achieved elite defensive rating, 105.2. This is first per basketball reference.com. Milwaukee's defensive rating, 105.2. They allow a lot of threes, 36.3 attempts per game. This is why, Daniel, I said that hitting the threes in 40% or more will be decisive for Boston in order to win the games, because they are allowing a lot of threes to the opponents, 36.3 attempts per game. And they are usually successful funneling those shoots to worse or less frequent shooters. So the Boston end of the bench will have to make the threes, in other words. But the Boston Celtics have number of guys at the end of rotations capable of shooting good. 8 players are at 36% and higher. And they were not shy taking away the threes in the regular season against Milwaukee. So in the 3 games, the Celtics averaged 3-point attempts. 3-point percent is like 0.486 over 10 points, you know. So we over 10 points. 3 PR is 0.486 over 10 points, and nearly 30% higher than their league average. So in 3 games, we shot like 48.6 for 3. In regular season, 38.1. And this is a red of a flag that you will find if you are rooting for Milwaukee. Now, this is pretty good preview as a Bucks series. As I referenced before, for the Bucks zone drop defense, you know, the Bucks are weakest on the perimeter. And the perimeter defense of Milwaukee Bucks, Daniel, they rank 23rd in NBA in defending the 3-point line, the 23rd. The Celtics were, if I'm correct, top 3 teams, I think 3rd in 3-point shoots made this season. So while I'm extremely comfortable that Al Horford shooting against the Bucks zone drop defense will be good, I'm terrified of Aaron Baines and Daniel Theis shooting in this series. That is why I don't want to see Daniel Theis in this series at all. And Aaron Baines' minutes will be limited, as we underlined. And also the rebounding, and the media said Milwaukee held a decisive advantage in 2 of their wins in rebounding department. I'm encouraged by Boston's rebounding performance against Indiana, and I hope that that trend will continue. Daniel, what do you say about the facts that I presented, the Milwaukee Bucks zone drop defense, and how the Boston has the key to solve their defense?
Well, for one, I think one thing that many people gotta look at is the thing you just mentioned. Is everybody wants to look at, oh, they had a big major advantage in free throws in 2 of the 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
What 2 of the 3 games? I would ask them. Come on, just like I was telling the Milwaukee fans in this situation. What 2 of the 3 games, you know, did the Milwaukee Bucks starters dominate the Boston starters? You know, I told them specifically, know your information, do the research before you actually go spreading some sort of news. You know, in this situation, what? We know for a fact that you guys had dominated the Celtics in the second game, but come on. Any team is going to dominate the Celtics rebounding-wise when they got no Horford, no Morris, and no Baines. So you can technically take that second game and you can throw it in a garbage can, throw it into a shredder or something like that, basically. So in 2 games where technically the Celtics had a decent amount of their bigs, their real bigs to play, Boston is 1-1 against you when it comes to the rebounding battle. But, like I say, Igor, the people that want to actually make Milwaukee look good leave those little details out when it comes to their arguments. You know, someone like me, I'm willing to accept my team and me basically saying, hey, Boston basically loses this argument and facts prove it. But I will also say to you, Boston wins the argument and the facts prove it. You know, me, I may be a pro-Boston sports person, but I can at least be willing to tell you the truth. And in this situation. So in this situation, those Milwaukee people, are not telling the truth when it comes to that. Second of all, when it comes to the situation with what you mentioned with the 3-point shooting and all of that, well, like you said, the 3-point shooting is gonna be critical because for one, you gotta get Giannis and Lopez out of the paint. As simple as that. In this case, the moment you one of those two, it's kind of like Shaq and Dwight Howard. What you had to do to basically beat those guys with those teams, you had to force those guys out of the paint to get the easier baskets. How did you do it? By making the man who basically those guys were guarding start making shots outside the paint, and so those guys had no choice but to leave the area. The Celtics, like you said, are one of the top teams shooting-wise from three-point land, and if the Celtics are making their threes, those guys are going to have to decide. Either go and defend the three, or let Irving, let Tatum, let Morris, let Horford, let Brown, let Rozier, let Hayward, let them all just get wide open three after three after three, or even worse, get a defensive 3-second violation and give a free throw. Of course, if it's Giannis, I wouldn't be surprised if even that doesn't get called. Unfortunately, because it's him. So the 3-point line is going to be critical in this series, as you said, because of what it's going to mean for the Celtics. That could completely negate the Bucks' defense if the Celtics are shooting on all cylinders. But the zone defense, any team that does it, the 3-point shooting is basically what negates it. Because that's the only way, because the zone defense is basically to basically defend the layups.
Danny, for the end of this preview, we make it a little longer than expected, but it was fun talk, and I think that we covered all the areas. For the end, 2 things to do. Keys of the series, from my side and from your side, and you can comment your keys, I can comment you can comment my keys, disagree or agree, I can comment your keys, and for the end of the show, of course, the production of the series. And we know approximately tonight the Boston Celtics and Milwaukee Bucks playoff schedule will be published, but more or less we know when the days when more or less we know the days when the games will be played. The game number 1 will be Sunday, 28 April 2019, 1 p.m. Eastern in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Anyway, the keys of the series. Matchups. The key number 1, matchups. Kyrie Irving needs to stay close to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Al Horford needs to win the matchup against Brook Lopez. Jason Tatum will have to be close to Chris Middleton and his production. And the others will have, for example, Mook Morris will have to win his matchup against Mirotic. Brown will have to win the matchup against Brown. So key number 1, matchups. Key number 2, defense. The Celtics defense, Daniel, will have to be at the top of their performance. What does that mean? That means that they will have to limit the Bucks role players, starting from Chris Middleton, to less than their average. If Chris Middleton scores 20 points per game just for exercise, our defense will have to limit him to 16 below average. So we will have to cut from every single player 2 or 3 points below average to limit them, the role players of Milwaukee Bucks, okay? You will not stop Giannis, of course. He will get like 100 free throws per game and he will have 30, 40 points per game. Anyway, the key number 2, defense. The Celtics defense must be at the top of performance. I'm looking to the bench also, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, Mook Morris, even Ojule or Tice. They will have to perform perfectly on the defense. And our defense will have to limit the Bucks of offense, which is great, 105.6 offensive production, if I am correct. So they have to limit Bucks to under average points per game scored. Key number 3, like I said, 3-point shooting. The Celtics will have to shoot better, and whichever team shoots better in field goal percent, and especially 3-point percent, they will win. Another key number 4, let's say transition. Bucks have the good transition, so we will have to defend their transition well and stop them from running, and at the same time we will have to attack them in transition on our offense whenever the opportunity presents itself. Key number 4, transition. And key number 5, starting lineup, closing lineup, in-game adjustments. In other words, matchup between Brad Stevens and Mike Budenholzer. Whoever wins that matchup will win the series. I'm not going to go any longer, so your keys, and you can disagree or you can present your keys now.
Again, like you said, defensively, it's stopping the role players. To me, I think it's a little bit different, though, than what you said, because I think you're not going to stop Antetokounmpo, and deep down, I don't think you're going to stop Middleton either.
Okay.
Because it was even...
I said to limit him 3 or 4 points below average, yes.
You know, because even last year we had Marcus Smart on him, and he was still getting close to 30 a game, upper 20s. Mm-hmm. So without Marcus Smart, I don't think we're gonna get the job done. Even though Jaylen Brown got the job done in the first round against Bogdanovich, and if he could do the same thing in round 2, then forget it. Boston is gonna win this series, because again, I said it before, Antetokounmpo is not gonna be able to beat this Celtics team on his own. Middleton and everybody else on that team is gonna have to come up and get the job done. But last year proved you can beat this team even with both Middleton and Antetokounmpo balling and having nearly 30 points a game. So those two can get theirs. It's you stopping Bledsoe, it's you stopping Brown, it's you stopping Lopez, and stopping that Milwaukee bench in this situation. Because again, Kyrie, if Kyrie can keep it close with Antetokounmpo, and Tatum can keep it close with Middleton, that's where Horford, Brown, whether it's Morris or Hayward, the rest of those guys are gonna have to basically, Rozier, they're all gonna have to get the job done of outscoring the rest of the crowd in this situation to basically win these games. Now, I do not expect no blowouts in this series either way, whether it's us blowing out them or them blowing out us. I do worry again about the officiating in this series. We already saw in the regular season, the one game that featured these two teams in terms of the rosters we will see in the playoffs, which was that third game in Milwaukee. The officiating played a major role in determining the outcome of that game. If you don't think I'm telling the truth, go and take a look at the stats in this situation. And of course, the players that were missing for Boston compared to the players missing for Milwaukee in this case. That also played a role in a 1-point loss. So this is going to come down to basically, can you shut down Bledsoe and everybody else, and just make it where Middleton and Giannis are the ones that basically are on fire. On offense, it's going to come down to basically, can we get the ball moving and everybody getting involved, similar to what we saw in Game 4 against Indiana. I guarantee you Irving and Tatum are gonna get theirs. Irving is knows, especially in this series, he is gonna have to bring it if he wants to really prove that he is capable of leading this team to the promised land. Against Indiana, that team didn't have anybody in the first round as a superstar in this case, so it didn't actually have to be you to get the job done. But in this next series, you're talking about players that are up there in the all-star caliber level with you, or in some cases, you're talking about Giannis and Kawhi Leonard in the next round in all likelihood, if you get past the Bucks, players who everybody seems to be putting ahead of you, despite the fact that Giannis hasn't won a damn thing yet in his career. Kawhi, of course, has won at least one ring, like you, if I'm correct. Well, should I say I know Kawhi has won one ring. I'm not sure if he's won another in this situation, but I know he's won at least one. So this is going to be a series where Kyrie is going to have to make a statement in this situation. And I'm not saying make a statement where he's taking all the shots and being a ball hog like at times LeBron James was, but I mean having a really big shooting performance and being able to go toe-to-toe, similar to the way he was in throughout the regular season when he went toe-to-toe with guys like Kawhi, James Harden, Steph Curry, and all these other guys. We've seen the Celtics throughout the regular season get 4, 5, 6 guys all in double figures. That's the type of performance we're going to need in each and every one of these games if we're going to have a shot. And I hope for the NBA, for their sake, should I say, Igor, any one of these teams in the Eastern Conference that's left over, now that it's official that round 2 is going to be Boston and Milwaukee, Philly and Toronto, any one of these 4 teams can easily make it to the NBA Finals, and you can kind of look at it and say, well, it's easy to understand why they made it. In my opinion, this is where now you got to tell the officials, stay out of it. Stay out of it, because if you give any one of these teams the type of treatment we saw in Game 4 for Milwaukee the other night, we are going to know exactly what they're trying to set up, and it's going to be nothing but a screw job. And that is just going to show once again in this situation that when it comes to this case, the playoffs are officially rigged. I can understand.
Right.
I can understand. People will say, all right, fine. You probably did it in Game 4 against Detroit because you wanted to guarantee that Milwaukee won the game. Nobody was injured. You want to make sure that they're all healthy that they're as healthy as possible come Game 1 against the Boston Celtics and all of that. But you start doing that now when Milwaukee and Boston are going toe-to-toe, that's just going to let us know the team that has the better superstar, if it's going to Milwaukee, which is probably what's going to happen, it's all about you trying to make sure the best superstars are there at the very end in this situation, which just tells fans like us there's no point in even wasting our time watching the sport when it comes to basically the regular season, taking our time doing what we're doing with these chats, the radio shows, and the play-by-play coverage, because our teams are not going to have a chance to even win come playoff time, because for the league, it's all about the money. And I would say, look at the way the NHL is going. The NHL playoffs are now going around 2 as well, and the top teams in the NHL all got eliminated because the officiating doesn't get involved for the most part. Those teams are forced to actually play and win for themselves, and they got beat by teams below them in the standings. So the NBA, we've seen you do it before. You've screwed some of the lower teams to basically give players like LeBron James, to give players like Kobe Bryant, and all these other guys in the past the opportunity to win and make sure that their teams got to the NBA Finals. It's time to see Who are you going to give the opportunity to? A team like the Bucks in this situation, who have now the league's best player, but he hasn't proven a damn thing other than winning one playoff series? Are you going to give it to Kawhi, who is a champion already, but could be ditching Toronto after this season just to run to Los Angeles? Are you going to give it to Boston, which is technically, a team that their superstar could be ditching their team to go to LA after this series? And of course, everybody hates us because our city is constantly winning. And heck, if the Celtics and Bruins win, then Boston has won all 4 championships from all 4 sports in the span of just a year. Or are you going to give it to Philly, a team that has, a starting lineup that has 5 All-Stars in this situation? But I think you got Butler, who could be leaving. You got one of them, an Embiid, who can't stay healthy. You got Simmons, who can't make a freaking jump shot to save his life. It's going to be interesting. I just hope, if anything, don't call a damn foul whatsoever, unless it's a really big time foul, flagrant or something like that. Let these guys kill each other for all I care, and let's see who really is the better team when it comes to these 4 teams. Don't let the free throws, or in this case, call fouls, but don't use free throws in this second round. Let's see which one of these 4 teams really is the best team in the Eastern Conference. Don't go the route of basically giving an easy pass to 2 of them to basically get to the 3rd round, and the next round screwing one of them to give the other one an easy pass to get to the NBA Finals in this case. Even if it, heck, I'm a Celtics fan, but even I wouldn't want to see my team get into the finals like that in this situation, because it doesn't prove a damn thing and doesn't prove we were the better team in this case. I prefer to see my team win fair and square, which is why when we look at the first round, Igor, we did win fair and square, because all 4 games, even though they were close, the free throw situation was within 2, 3, 4, 5 free throws in this case. But Game 4 for the Milwaukee Bucks, that was absolutely horrendous. So I can live with Milwaukee beating us if the officiating was like the way it was the free throw situation was the way it was for us against Indy in the first 3 games. But if it's anything like we saw what we saw in Game 4 against Detroit, trust me, I think almost every fan in Boston or every Celtics fan around the world is going to have something to complain about. And we'll know Milwaukee basically was just given an easy pass to the next round. And even if they win the whole thing, we know they basically weren't the better team.
Yeah, you said pretty much good stuff that I missed to say it. You said that the officiating will be one decisive factor in the series, and I totally agree with you. I want to add, just before we wrap up the things, we have only predictions left, but I want to add on our team analysis Milwaukee Bucks roster and the starters that you mentioned. For example, in the game number 4 against Detroit Pistons, that they won 127-104, the starters for Milwaukee Bucks were Brook Lopez, Sterling Brown, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, like we said. The guys that played the most from the bench, Paul Connaughton, he played 25 minutes. Then George Hill, our old friend from Indiana and Lakers, played 19 points. Nikola Mirotic played 19 points. And Ersan Ilyasova played 17 points. Tony Snell returned 4 minutes, but that means that he is still injured. So that is going to be their bench. Paul Connaughton, who is playing, Paul Connaughton is playing guard forward, 6'4". Then Tony Snell, point guard. George Hill guard. George Hill point guard. Tony Snell shooting guard. Paul Connaughton guard forward. Ersan Ilyasova power forward. And Nikola Mirotic center. That's their bench right now. Gasol still not playing. Brogdon still not playing. Dante DiVincenzo still not playing. Now, prognosis, I said Celtics in 7. It could be 6 games. I really feel comfortable that Boston team is more playoff experienced team. They have better coach. Depends on Bucks injury report. Our bench can outscore Boston Celtics bench, and like you said, the Celtics starters outscore their starters in like 2 games out of 3, if I'm correct. So the recipe, like you said, is to make Giannis tired, and he will score his points, but to make him inefficient. For example, if he scores 40 points, let him do it out of 30 plus attempts. It will be almost impossible, but that's it. And of course, to limit our defense, we'll have to limit the supporting cast. For example, if Giannis scores 40 points or 35 points, we will have to limit all the rest guys to less than 40 points, which will be, let's say, less than 45, okay, including Middleton. If we do it, if our defense do the job, we will have huge opportunities for success. And I mentioned mismatches. I don't want to repeat myself. We will have to steal 1 game away. This is why it's important that we won 2 games in Indianapolis. We proved that we can win on away court. Like Kyrie Irving said, this team doesn't care about who is the best team in the league. This team just doesn't care who on which court they are playing. And I really hope that the confidence will be high sky. And one of the keys, I said Celtics in 7. Brad Stevens better than Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer from Atlanta has bad experience with the Celtics. So again, Celtics in 7. Your closing words, Daniel?
This series is going to go at least 6. It's pretty much guaranteed. I expect to be in 7, like you said, Celtics in 7. You got to make Giannis be the one to try and beat you. You know, if Middleton is probably the only other person that you can accept maybe trying to shoot the ball, but you lock down everybody else in this case. Make it a 2-man game for that team because eventually everybody else is going to be cold when it's time for those 2 to sit down. That's going to be the key. And that's when you take the lead right back. And by the time those guys come in, they're going to have to really do all the work again to try and get the lead right back. And they are going to be exhausted towards the end of the game because, again, they're having to do all the work. Brad Stevens, you know, he may not be coach of the year this year because of the fact that the Bucks have the best record and all of that. But he is the better coach in this series. You know, he's proven that when it comes to having to get, I guess you can say, technical out of the 2, he's the one that you got to bank on. You know, Budenholzer is one. He just basically gives the ball to one player and tells him, here, take the ball, get me there in this situation by pounding the ball inside. That's really it. Or pound it inside, wait for a man to get open and shoot. That's not the way Brad Stevens goes about it. He always comes up with something that actually is able to work in some sort of way. So if it comes down to Game 7, I expect all these games to be close, and it could be something like that, a trick play of some sort that ends up allowing the Celtics. Remember, we lost that 3rd game in Milwaukee, but it was a 1-point loss with the Celtics having a chance to win it at the buzzer. Kyrie Irving's floater just didn't fall down in that game at the buzzer. So if that floater goes in, it's the Celtics winning by 1 point instead of Milwaukee winning at 1 point. So the Celtics have proven technically they got what it takes to win in Milwaukee. And I think if the Celtics are going to win in Milwaukee, it's probably going to be one of the first 2. in all likelihood. So it's going to be a good series overall. If the Celtics can make it to Game 7 and let's say they lose overall, I can live with the results in this situation. Again, especially if the officiating is fair in this series. As long as we are not getting screwed because they want to make the next big name player in the league look dominant, I can live with us losing in this series, especially if Marcus Smart is not able to go.
Okay, that's all from our live video chat with Igor and Danny. We want to thank you for, if you watch us, and for supporting us all these years. We're rooting for the Celtics. Live play-by-play, game number 1 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, 28 April, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're signing off and wishing you good night. Follow us at Celtics Talk Radio pages. We'll be the Green Celtics Fans Forum, and go Celtics. Daniel?
It's, again, ladies and gentlemen, going to be a good series. You keep an eye on the group itself. Hopefully, we'll be back in a few weeks talking about an Eastern Conference Finals preview for the Celtics. And, of course, hopefully the Bruins will be doing the same thing in the NHL. Boston is looking for a 4-0 championship sweep. It's still in the books in this case.